All right, we live? Looks like we're live. Wow, what a beautiful day it is here. I hope it's just nice for you everywhere. It's toasty warm. It's going to probably get close to 60 degrees here after a week of ice pop. Jumped on right at 12 for you here. I'm looking. The Maryland game has not started yet. I know I spoke with JJ. He's going to go over the college football rundown for you today. We'll both jump in and out of that, but I wanted to make sure there's two plays at noon, one football, one basketball. I did jump in on under 70 and a half UNC Pitt, and that is a noon start for the two people watching. So I did play Pie. What's up, buddy? I did play under 70 and a half there. Maryland game's been all over the place. Actually, if you logged in just a couple of minutes ago, you could have gotten Maryland at plus 2.5. That game's been everywhere from 1 to 2.5 since this morning. I think it's sitting right now. I've got it at 1.5. That's on DK in Virginia. But a nice slate today. It looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bowl games. Starting to get into the teams with the better records, the 8-win teams, the 9, 10-win teams. You know, it's funny. I see people 6-win teams should not play in a bowl game. Okay, I mean, but when it's Oklahoma, it's okay, I guess, because they were a 6-win team that got in a bowl game and got beat. I had a great day yesterday. Some of the loyal Fox Den listeners that reached out to me and asked for my plays yesterday had a great one yesterday, actually, with a sweep of the college basketball card and a Washington money line to end the night. So we're going to run down college basketball today. I've selected a few games. I've got 3 plays for you in college basketball. I know JJ's going to have a decent slate of he's going to hit you with a couple plays in college football. Hopefully he's got opinions on the 2 games that I don't have opinions on that I have not played. That orange game at the end of the night, I just choose to call it the orange game. Tennessee Clemson. I got nothing on that game. I wish I did. It's funny. Whenever I have nothing, I'm like, well, surely it should go over. That's the worst thing you can ever do. I promise you. If you don't have anything, don't bet it. Don't get trapped. Ooh, trapped. Oh, Jeffrey Benson at Circa's out here trapping everyone today, probably. He's just sitting in his little office just trapping you. So until JJ gets here, I'll kick it off with a little college basketball. We did talk about UNC Pitt is a noon tip. And I did play the under 70.5 there. Oftentimes like to do that. Early games, a noon tip on a Saturday is not necessarily out of line. A noon tip on, a Friday, holiday weekend coming up. There's 11 o'clock starts. I always like to delve under there. It's like games kind of start sleepy. The main reason there is, Pitt's just not a great basketball team. They're facing a lot of length in the UNC team. Princess Chachu, I'll tell you what, here's the 2 things with me on Maryland, okay? They're a very mercurial team. I get that. And if you're looking at their whole slate, I see what you're saying about finding an angle. My ratings on this game have Maryland as the favorite, should be the favorite, okay? And again, I'm going to talk about that. My ratings are team ratings, all right? So to give you an example, in season, if Clemson, DJ Ungaluli goes down, their starting quarterback for the majority of the regular season, if he gets hurt and he's going to be out a game, the line's going to move. So let's just look at the ACC title game. He came out, he ran 1 or 2 series, I think 1, but he's throwing balls in the dirt. They go to the backup who just proceeds to rout North Carolina in the ACC title game. So there's a classic example of if that was pregame injury, you would have got even more value on Clemson because everybody's like, oh, DJ's out. This guy can't do anything. My ratings are team ratings. So the loss of a player, to me, somebody like JJ has a better grasp on individual players, right, and their impact and their potential impact. And not only that, their potential impact against teams' strengths and weaknesses that they're facing. I just stick with a team rating, Chachu, and I have Maryland as a favorite there. 2 games that caught my eye on their rotation this year. Close contests with both Michigan and Ohio State. They scored points on both those defenses. I get it. I see games where they were shut out by not great teams. I also saw games where they shut out not great teams. So a very mercurial team, but those 2 games against Ohio State and Michigan are what swayed me along with my ratings to Maryland in this game. And, that shows me that obviously that's the 2 biggest games on Maryland's schedule. What are you going to tell me? Rutgers is their rival? I don't know. Certainly not West Virginia anymore. It used to be a good rivalry, but it's not anymore. So they've stepped up in those games. That was obviously their Super Bowl games of the year, Michigan, Ohio State, right? And now here they are in a bowl game, which is the ultimate, right, big game if you want to look at it that way. So that you look to them. Hopefully they come to play and put up a similar effort as they did in those two games. But let's chew on a little college basketball here. UNC Pitt, we went under 70.5 first half. UNC, I can't emphasize enough the importance of outs, multiple outs. Okay. And I know it's hard, right? Recreational player, someone who's doing it as a side job like I do. You spread your money around so far, and pretty soon you're chasing it all over the place trying to figure out. But if you have 3 outs, okay, the 3 I use most commonly here, I think I talked about on last show: bookmaker, MGM, DK. Okay, you have a couple in there that'll try to be more trendsetters, line setters. But at one moment today, when I had all 3 open, the UNC line was 5, 6, and 6.5 at those 3 casinos, sports books. So, if you were a UNC bettor, you had a great line on UNC 5. If you were a Pitt backer, you had a great line on Pitt 6.5. And you didn't even have to get on your motorcycle and ride around Vegas like I used to have to do to check lines and go through all that, or check your, Dom Best from home and then run to 3 different casinos to try to catch it in time. We're doing it from the comfort of our home. So multiple outs, folks. That's you have to go that route if you want to try to make money. I mean, the bigger, if you bet UNC at 6.5 versus a guy that bets it at 5, again, that's not even really closing line value. That was just at a given moment this morning, maybe 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning when I was up. They're giving that point and a half away over the course of a season of bets is going to hurt you. It's going to sting you. So thank you, 10 loyal listeners here. Faxman Fridays, the show. Yes, it looks like the Fox Den. It will soon look like JJ if he shows up. He's got kind of an important job, I'm sitting home here with hip replacement, and this is pretty much all I got shaken today, except for walk and do my little exercises that I've got to do. For those that were asking, the hip's coming along pretty good. The thigh is actually the issue. So for those of you that don't know, they cut an incision about this big right on top of your thigh, and then they stretch your thigh apart, dislocate your hip, saw off the end of the biggest bone in your body, drill a hole in it, put all those parts back together, and pop it back in. For me, I never had hip pain post-surgery. I only had to take pain medicine for, I think, Monday through Friday the first week. I haven't had any in the next 2 weeks since. But the thigh, my thigh muscle, you could bounce quarters off of it. It's harder than a funeral drum. I mean, but that's what I'm working on now, stretching that out, getting the thigh back, doing a lot of walking. So for those of you with hip transplants, replacements coming up, you got something to look forward to. All right, on to college basketball, and I'll give some opinions later in the show. I'll just give a little rundown of some games that I looked at today. Miami, Notre Dame. Miami is anywhere from 2 to 3 in that game. I saw that line this morning. Another nice ball game today, NC State, Clemson. Clemson was 2 there. 2 teams that Ken Palm has rated very equal. And one team has a huge advantage in terms of rebounding, and that's NC State. So how long's PT for that? So I had in-home PT, Princess Chachu, for the first 2 weeks. So a guy came, and he was a UVA grad. And most people were like, oh, it must have killed you. No, it doesn't. No, because if I had a horse or a cow that I needed to get worked on, I would want a VT guy. My hip, my body, I'd rather have a UVA guy. They're sharp. 2 weeks in-home PT, and then I'll probably be like a month going to a outpatient PT physical therapy here in town in Blacksburg. So that's what I got shaking there. Looks like there's some kind of light behind me, some kind of alien light or something. Sunny day here, so the camera's a little weird. Sorry. So yeah, that's coming along good, Chachu. And I did my first PT at the PT place yesterday, and it's mainly they put electrolysis up. They hooked up to my thigh and try to loosen the thigh muscle and stretch it and that kind of stuff. And then we'll get into other stuff as we go on, and they'll start to torture me. NC State, Clemson, 2 huge rebounding edge there for NC State, 76th in the country in offensive rebounding, where Clemson sits at 307. So we'll give out some picks, but you can kind of see where I'm leaning there. Another little game I looked at, Siena, Quinnipiac. Quinny was anywhere from 3.5 to 4 when I checked it this morning. Both teams in the negative on Ken Palm. Couple advantages there, but it's a game I stayed away from. a beauty out in no man's land, North Dakota State, North Dakota. People are probably like, why do you watch this? Why do you look at those games? I mean, those are a lot of times real good games to look at because they're oftentimes not bet as hard, and you can find some decent advantages there. But these are not two great basketball teams by any means. I mean, ranking over 300 in the country for those of you. I mean, I'm sure you guys know how many college basketball teams in the country. If you're ranked 300 or worse, that's not very good in any stat. 300 and worse, and put both teams in assist to turnover ratio. North Dakota State's 327 in rebounding. Both teams in defensive efficiency. North Dakota State is 342nd. North Dakota is 321st. So just an interesting game. I pulled it, and I just there might be a little angle there. We'll talk about later. But another one I looked at and I have an opinion on is USC Washington. USC anywhere between 1 and 2. I saw this morning. But that's nice. That looks to be a nice ball game, and that USC team, I kind of like that team a little bit. And last one I looked at was UCLA and Wazoo. So that was UCLA giving 8.5 to Wazoo. UCLA's metrics are very impressive, actually. Top 67 and 4 of my 5, and then the fifth one they don't really give up much to Wazoo. So we'll talk about that game as well. Man, I don't know what it's like the sun is blazing or something. I don't know. I can try to fix it, but we'll see. Let's see if this helps. Hey, not bad for the rookie. Sorry, I don't normally do them in daytime, as you guys know. It's normally nighttime, so a lot of times I get, I was criticized for being in the trailer park there in one of the first shows because it was so dark and dingy, and I actually liked that comment. I gave that guy a lot of credit. So that lighting looks a little bit better to me. Let's see here. So I don't know what JJ's doing. He's probably making another $1 million for the company he works. Yeah, Pi, that was a good sweep yesterday, and I'm glad you got to feast on those holiday goodies. Hopefully we have another good one today. Since we're on college basketball, I'll go ahead and give out my college basketball plays. I don't want to jump college football because I know JJ's got some opinions there, and I definitely don't want to jump on him. I'm going to give him about another 10 minutes, and then I'm going to run out of things to talk about, and you guys have to ask questions, or it's going to be a really bad show. We already dropped. How do we drop 3 viewers? I don't even think I gave out 2 plays in the first minute of the show. I'm just checking that Maryland game. I think that's underway now. So Maryland NC State was the early game. Maryland was +1 this morning, went to +2.5. I think they closed at 1.5. Total was 45.5 in that game. Again, my ratings have Maryland as a favorite there. I think Maryland's a good play. Somebody asked about the live. Chachu asked about the live. I'm not the best live better. I think JJ is probably really good at that. I think some other people I know do it really well. It can be a slippery slope for me. It only takes one bad buy, and then you're like, oh God, like what do I do now? I can't buy the other side. Do I buy more? The only choice I do is buy more. The line keeps going up and up and up. That one kind of, I've just never been a big live guy. I don't have a good pulse for it. So, but I appreciate the people that can do it. I think there's a lot of advantages to live betting. And certainly if you have a pre-flop bet in, and then you can jump in live and arbitrage a little bit, you can get some big spreads that way. And I think that's where JJ actually excels a lot of times. I'm kind of like Fax. I bet a game to win the game, and usually I'm going to ride it out. Don't do much in the live market, but that might be an interesting game. Maybe NC State gets up a field goal. I can't see the score right now. Looks like they're in a commercial. That game was a noon start. Right after that, you have 2:00 start. And let me just get I hate doing it. If you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. I love the little names. I'm not big on giving the sponsors names, right? But it's hard to not give a sponsor's name in the first one, right? It's the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I love Duke's Mayo too. That's a good mayo. That game is 0-0. Looks like 9:18 to play in the first. It looks like Maryland's set the NC State 23 from what I see on my phone here. What's the next one? Pitt UCLA is the 2:00 game. I would just say it's the Sun Bowl, but I actually like this one. It's the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. If you don't like Frosted Flakes, you're really not a friend of mine, is all I can tell you. Anybody that doesn't like Frosted Flakes, I don't even see how you're an American at that point. It's like, how could you be like, I don't like Frosted? What do you like, cornflakes and put sugar on it? Yeah, I'll take Frosted Flakes. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, 2:00. Pitt at UCLA. Pitt is 8-4 on the season. Coached by Nard Dog there in Pittsburgh. Had a really funny experience, and I'll share this real quickly. We're at the 15-minute mark, but me and my son went to the Pirates game where they had the inaugural Hall of Fame class. So they introduced they had never had a Pirates Hall of Fame. So they had their first class. Of course, that's Clemente, Stargell, Parker, Blass, Wagner. All the greats are getting inducted, and their plaques on the outfield wall, out in the brick wall, but beyond the outfield fence. And we were out there by Manny's barbecue, and I told my son, you watch, Manny Sanguino will sit down, and nobody will know it's him. And you can walk over and talk to him and get a picture, which, of course, we were both wearing the Clemente jerseys. Very emotional moment. Got a picture with him. And when we go to games, my son and I, we like cool stadiums. PNC is a very cool stadium. Heinz, Acrisure in Pittsburgh is really cool with the rotundas and the walkways. So we like to wander around, kind of get different views. So we were working our way behind home plate, and I have no idea, but Pat Narduzzi, the head coach of Pitt, was at that game that night, sitting obviously in box seats. I'm sitting out in the middle of the right field wall. He comes running up the stairs. Me and my son are just standing there. I'm like, I know who it is. He's got Pitt gear on, Pitt hat, Pitt sweats. It's pretty damn clear who he is. It's a unique looking man. And he comes running up to me and he gives me a big bro hug. And he's like, man, it's been so long. It's great to see you. Blah, 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 blah. And they had just beat West Virginia. I think they beat West Virginia right before that, but they had beaten a rival, and I congratulated him on that. And he's like, wow, good to see you. Who's your son? I'm introducing him, blah, 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 blah. He wanders off, and my son goes, Dad, who's that? And I said, well, that's the head coach of Pitt, son. That's Pat Narduzzi. He goes, when did you meet him? Never, son. And my son just looks at me and goes, I love Pittsburgh. So Nard Dog gave me some love. Don't know where it came from. It must have looked like some recruit he had 40 years ago or something. But only commies don't like Frosted Flakes. I love it, pie. So, yeah, that was my Nard Dog experience. And I like him. A lot of people in Pittsburgh really don't like Narduzzi. It seems to me he just puts competitive teams out there every year. I mean, he's right off an ACC title. His quarterback's a first-round pick playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He lost to receiver Addison. I guess he went to USC. He's going to obviously be a high pick this year. I think their quarterback, Jerk me off. I don't know who he is, but fans didn't like him. I think he transferred, if I read right. And then they picked up another guy that came in who was an original Pittsburgh kid who's transferring into Pitt. So, but this is a nice little ball game. The ratings here, I've got UCLA rated a little bit higher, but certainly not enough to merit that 8.5. The number I looked at this morning is 8.5, and it did go down to 7.5. Now I'm seeing on and I don't know how accurate this is on let me see. The ESPN showing 9, but that never means anything. DK right now is at 8.5. So I think that number's a little too high. Again, we're going to give JJ a little bit of time to come in here and weigh in on these bowls. I won't give any opinions until the end of the show. If he's not here, I'll fire on all of them. Third game of the day, 3:30 start. 3:30 start is your Gator Bowl. And I won't say their sponsor because I don't like them, or I don't really care, but I'm not going to say them because they paid so much money to sponsor it. Screw them. We're not going to give the sponsor's name. It's the Gator Bowl. It's what we called it growing up. Yeah, just the Gator Bowl. That's all we called them. Nobody put their name on it, but alligators and stuff like that, and suns and bells and independences and oranges. And that was when bowl games were right, man. 3:30 start, Notre Dame at South Carolina. I can just tell you right now, as a Virginia Tech guy, most people probably think that I'm a Shane Beamer fan. Nice kid, really good guy, younger than me. I'm calling him kid. He's not a kid. I'm not being disrespectful, but I didn't think he'd ever become a head coach in college football, and I'll tell you why. Many of you may not remember, but they were playing a game. I don't remember the venue, if they were home or away. I think Dunkel's about to jump in, but.
Wow.
Hey. I love it.
Oh.
We're running pure with the lids.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, I love the tree, a little festive spirit.
Right? Yeah.
So much to be positive about. Look at us with the matching hats.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah, so what's going on? How are you?
I'm good. You doing all right today, JJ?
Good.
Happy New Year.
Good.
Happy New Year.
Same to you. What games have we covered? What games are we looking on?
I was at Notre Dame. I hadn't given out any. I just gave out Maryland early, right when I popped on before it kicked. We did go over that one. I haven't given out any opinions on any other college games yet. I was just the Shane Beamer story when he was at Virginia Tech. He was he was a coordinator, found the other team's playbook. Standard thing you do, you walk it over to the other team. You say, here, found this, you do the right thing. He doesn't. He keeps it. Game ends in regulation in the 0-0 tie. So that was like my breaking tipping point for Shane Beamer. You had their playbook. What do they say? If you had their playbook, you should never lose. And you had 0-0 tie at the end. Now, so jump right in. Notre Dame, South Carolina, JJ.
That is pretty interesting, though. But real quick, what do you make of Beamer? Obviously, he got a lot of praise, and it looks like he's turned around that offense towards the end of the season. Rattler looked as good as he did all year. So many different weapons on that team popped out of nowhere. They obviously blew out Tennessee, which whether you thought they would win that game or not, I don't think anybody saw that specifically coming. No. So regardless, you think he projects well? I mean, ultimately, he was when he got that job, I know he was pretty highly recruited into it. You think, to me, you hear that defensive playbook issue and you hand it back and you still 0-0 lose. That's not good, obviously. No. But what's your take overall with that?
He's probably a good fit for that program, right? They've tried a lot of different ones. They tried the what was it? The Will Muschamp was there, I think, at one point. They haven't really got anything since Spurrier. Spurrier was the perfect fit, right? He was a guy that was an SEC guy. He was happy to be there. He was going to be there as long as he coached. And Beamer looks like that guy, and they're probably looking at him like Tech did his dad, right? Get him young. He should be able to recruit. He should be able to sit down on the couch and land kids. And it's a place that he probably sticks and stays. What is Beamer's ceiling, I would ask? It's probably a school like South Carolina. So in the end, I know I busted on him. He's a good kid. He's obviously got the backing, the history of his father and that behind him. He's got a ton of coaching experience. SC's probably lucky to have him. He's probably lucky to have SC. Overall, I call it a good fit.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, in regards to this pick, I'm interested in your thoughts because I know I'm on Pitt. I know you're on Pitt. I'll tell you this, though. My biggest concerns are lack of continuity on the Pitt end. You're obviously going to get your best version of UCLA today offensively. They have a lot of their studs, their guys. But, man, it's kind of hard to project this drop-off that we're going to get, right? Because Pitt has one of the better running backs in the country who's not going to play, right? I don't think.
I heard the same thing.
He might play, but looks like he won't. Slovis, is he even playing?
I don't think. I'm not. He went in the transfer portal, and I thought he left.
That's right. So, obviously, they're going to have Wayne playing, which is a good sign, I guess. But to me, it's probably – and the same thing with you, Ray. It's just a spreadsheet kind of play, right? Like a Pitt kind of pops in a bit. UCLA doesn't pop as much as I think people would think they would because they don't play defense. But again, it is kind of, I don't want to say it's a guess. Like obviously for Rump Your Bets and, for them, I like to fire on every bowl game just so at least they have a perspective of every bowl game. So I fired on Pitt at 7.5. I think now it's 8.5. It might even move more with these other guys as it gets more affirmed that they're out.
I just checked that on DK. It was at 8.5, but ESPN's not that matters. The ESPN's showing a 9. So maybe somebody's
move, right? It's before game time. I mean, who, not want to say who in their right mind, but you hear all the news about the quarterback, the running back. It's just going to take people off the Pitt side in general. So it doesn't surprise me that you're going to get late steam. To me, it's either the drop-off isn't that much, and this is going to be a competitive game throughout, or the drop-off's way too much, and UCLA likely boat races them. Right. But on your end, you trust the numbers kind of like I do, so that puts us on Pitt. Anything you want to add there?
No, and I talked about it just before you jumped on. My ratings are team-based. I gave the example of DJ Uyunglele for Clemson. If you had a regular season game where he was hurt that week and wasn't going to start, the line would move against Clemson, correct? In a regular season game, not knowing the backup, not having seen him. But then we see it in the ACC title. He goes out for one series, throws dirt balls. The kid comes in and torches NC in a conference title game. So that's kind of where – I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I'm less likely to be overly influenced by individual players because one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. So the guy sitting behind, he's not a scrub. He now gets a chance. You hope that he seizes that opportunity. These are all competitive athletes. They're not.
I'll say that. I will say that Klubnik is like a pretty highly recruited kid. Yeah. Though, right? It's likely going to be different than whoever the hell they're going to run out for Pitt today. Likely. I'm not saying it will be, but likely will be different. I think Klubnik was the number one high school kid in the country a year or two ago.
Yeah. You don't end up at Clemson because you suck.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. Obviously, call it the unpopular end of things. I know UCLA is like a blaze, but I'll tell you this: like Chip Kelly kind of pisses down his leg in these spots. It's not going to surprise if this team does weird shit today. But anyway, yeah, I don't want to say I feel great about the Pitt end, but definitely was the side I bet, and we'll call it my personal least confident play of the day. Where's your confidence level on Pitt today, even at 8.5? Right.
I mean, I played it for my standard 1 unit, so I'm in on them. I mean, like you said, there's other games I feel a lot better about, but that's it's played, so I'll take it.
Yeah, let's roll. All right, so Notre Dame, South Carolina. You had said you talked about this game, or you were just talking about Beamer?
Just starting on, yeah, just Beamer.
Okay, so yeah, I laid the 3 with Notre Dame. They are coached differently now than previous years. I know bowl games and them, it just never seemed to work out. But they were always in the BCS. It never worked out. It's not like this team is not going to work out in one of these games. I do think South Carolina came into bowl season with a lot of momentum. But interesting to see how this game plays out, right? Because Notre Dame's, to me, a pretty real defense. And I don't think you have any opt-outs on the South Carolina side, right? I think you're getting a full roster from them today, correct?
I would imagine. I didn't hear of anything, and I don't know that anything would have been that significant anyways.
Yeah, I think it's hard to love South Carolina just from a numbers perspective. Not a great defense. Offense came to life late. What do you make of that? Just feels like a good Notre Dame spot at a small number. Now, this number's moved to 4.5 now. It looks like 4.5, right?
I saw 3.5 last I saw. I'm seeing 4.5 now as well.
Yeah, so I could call it late steam if you want, whatever you want to call it. But let me ask you this: at 4.5, do you still play? Because I'll be honest, at 4.5, I don't play. I liked the fact that I was able to get it at 3. At
Correct.
4.5, I don't play it. Maybe I tease it, like if you mix it with another team to tease it. Because I always like the 4.5 to 10.5. But in college, there's too much volatility to regularly tease in this sport. Not to say I don't do it. I've probably done it all year, total of maybe 4 times all year, maybe 3 times. And I've done it a little more frequently during bowl games. So maybe I did it once all year and then twice during bowl games. But for this one, yeah, Notre Dame for me, I assume you as well.
Yeah, Notre Dame to me is, if you just look at quality program, again, Notre Dame has fallen off. I'm probably one of the few Catholics in the United States that's not a Notre Dame fan. And the reason I say that is for years, right, they reaped the fruit of the tree. It was how hard is it to recruit? So, yeah, we're the only team that plays on national TV every single weekend. Back then, Florida wasn't playing on TV every week. Georgia would get a couple games a year. Texas would get a couple games a year. UCLA, USC get a couple games a year. Notre Dame got every week national contract, NBC. It was like a free recruiting, massive influx for them because then you were wanting to go to the NFL, right? You had to get that exposure. It was huge if you were a guy that wanted to go to the NFL, to go to Notre Dame. You just went there. Yeah. That's fallen off, obviously, with the expansion of TV, more games on TV, but I still, nobody's going to convince me that you're going to land better talent across the board at South Carolina than you are at Notre Dame. That's part of the trick of winning there at South Carolina, which even Spurrier, it's a 10-win season, I think was his best there. So I think the talent level at Notre Dame is too great. I think the defensive talent level, especially, and again, my ratings show that, that the 4.5 number is starting to work closer to what it should be. But I'm very comfortable with 3, and I definitely like this one a lot.
Cool. Yeah, so we'll move on to the Wyoming-Ohio game. Yeah, ugly game. Arguably the ugliest of the slate.
I was hoping you had a big position here because I got nothing.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a big position because I'll definitely call it the bet I have the second least confidence in today. But I did target the first half over the number. The reason why I did first half versus full game is it's not like, to me, the only way, like if Ohio goes up 2 scores, like to me, this game's over. And I'm just worried that Ohio sits on a lead. They don't have to, but I'm worried that they do. If Wyoming was to go up, I do have some faith that Ohio can get this back. But as far as scripting goes, to me, Ohio's been a decent offense early in games. Wyoming, not necessarily, but Ohio also does not play defense. So Wyoming, while they've had one of their typical type of years where they just slug through the Mountain West, This is a spot where you would think they could get chunk yardage in spots. And looking at it, what my favorite bet of was that in this game as a whole, first half over was what clicked the most for me. So that's what I fired on. It's 20.5. Again, it's hard, right? These teams kind of slug, but Ohio kind of moves. Like their offense is not exactly like a snail. And if I can just get a few early scores from either team, I think that you might just see some type of compulsion of scoring or big yardage plays. Two teams are really nothing to lose in this type of game. And again, I like the first half more than the full game because I feel like if any of these teams get a big lead, you could just sit out in the second half. So what do you think about the first half over there?
No, I agree with that. Ohio's got the better offense throughout the year, but that's one of the tough ones to compare. I mean, I know neither school has great weather late in the year, Ohio or Wyoming, but Wyoming's weather is brutal late in the year. I think around week 12 or 13, they were averaging about 330 yards per game offensively, which again, you have to kind of that's apples and oranges, right? If they're playing every game in a Florida type climate, maybe they're well over 400 yards. They're going to generally play games in Wyoming, chilly, cold, higher elevation, where exactly what you said. If they get out 14-0, that's slog down central at that point. Smash the run game, kill the clock. So if the first half over would be juicy because that's where you're hoping that these two teams come out. They're also two teams likely to pull a couple tricks out of the bag, right? They're nice ball game. So that's where you look for those couple quick scores you talked about that can have an impact on a first half total big time.
Yeah, just to answer you, Pi. What's up, Mitch? Would you guys mind Notre Dame first half instead of full? Yeah, look, if the game is 4 and you can get a first half at 2.5, I would definitely lean that way because that's probably a wrong line. You get a first half of 4. Usually you get a full game of 4. Usually first half's 3. So the fact that you get 2.5 if the price is right, to me it's more than fine. In relation to this game too, like you mentioned the weather, like Ohio plays in the MAC, which is kind of shitty weather, middle of the week, cold, sometimes wintry stuff. Wyoming's obviously shitty weather. Playing this game in the Arizona Bowl, like they're not gonna have issues with weather today. So to me, like I said, this game is purely on Ohio because Ohio is the team that does not play defense, and Ohio is a team that has a decent offense. So if we can get that decent offense and we can get that bad defense, I think you see some early scoring here in good weather. So that was where I fired. All right. So last but not least, Clemson, Tennessee. Now this under has dropped. We'll call it game day movement because I got 63 yesterday. I'm interested in your thoughts here, Ray. I really like this over. I think the Clemson quarterback's an upgrade from DJ. Again, this kid is super highly recruited.
Yeah, big time.
And I think they were just kind of waiting for an excuse to play him, and they had that excuse, and now he's going to be their guy. Milton is a similar type of quarterback to Hooker, not as much speed, but similar. This is the same Milton, Michigan. Is it the same Milton?
I think so.
Okay. So, dual threat, not as much speed as Hooker. Be interested to see how Heupel helps him offensively. But to me, you're going to get two teams that literally play up tempo offensively. Clemson has had one of their worst defensive years that I can remember. Tennessee doesn't play defense at all. So I love the fact that there's going to be points in this game. And I get it. You're missing studs in various ways. But you still have Shipley and Clemson. Clemson still has some other outside threats. Tennessee still has a few. McCoy, I guess the other two studs aren't playing, right? The Tennessee wide receiver is just McCoy today. But again, this is a team that still has highly recruited guys. To me, all year, you have two better offenses than defenses. To me, the total is like let me ask you this, Ray. Full blown offenses from both teams, right? Everybody played, everybody starred. Totals what? 70 this game?
70.
70, right?
100% 70. I mean, Orange Bowl, weather, perfect. Yeah. If at full strength, if this game's played in November, first week of November, it's 70s and upward.
So if we go under the presumption that, to me anyway, and I think most people would agree if you've watched this kid play, Klubnik's going to be an upgrade at quarterback. So that shouldn't have impacted the total. So then the question becomes, how much of a downgrade is Milton to Hooker? And considering this line has since dropped to 4.5, doesn't seem like too many people think he's that big of a downgrade. And on the running back side, you still have the same guys you normally would. The Tennessee receivers, I guess you play somewhat of that into it. But to me, numbers a few points off. I don't downgrade any of these guys coming in, or at least not most of them. Think it evens out. And I think even if you said it was a few points off, maybe 67, 66, you still have a number that's 4.5 points off that. So I do like the over in this game. And I don't usually like to bet 8 late game overs like this because I know that normally the public pounds the overs in these spots. But believe it or not, it looks like this is a chalky under. I guess because of the guy's not coming out or the guy's not playing. But
I'm looking at 60.5.
Yeah, so it's even down further. So
it dropped a point from 9 in the morning to 11 this morning. It's from 61.5 to 60.5.
Yeah, and I'll be honest.
This thing was all over point wise. By the way, I talked earlier about the necessity to have multiple outs, a minimum of 3 outs. This was another game that at the exact same time you had Clemson 5.5, Clemson 6, and Clemson 4.5 between bookmaker MGM and DK in Virginia. So I mean, if just looking at that, I mean, if you want Tennessee, you could have got them at 6. If you wanted Clemson, you could have got them at 4.5 at the same time. You got to have multiple outs, and this total is dropping. So I don't really see wide receivers is always going to be the least thing to make me jump, right? Because I mean that's it's like a pond full of talent. You see that like with teams like the Steelers who consistently draft late round wide receivers out of the MAC and less named schools, and they just keep churning them out at the NFL level. I know they got Pickens now, but I just feel like receivers are plug and play to me.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't. To me, I'm the same way with the receivers. I know that Tennessee had some studs on the outside, but I don't. It doesn't make sense to me why this is continuing to drop. And again, you're talking game day steam again. Like, how much do you really value or overvalue game day steam? This line has been out now for a month, 3 weeks. Do you really get yourself over concerned with a little line movement 8 hours before the game when it's been out for 3.5 weeks? Because I don't. So ultimately, yeah, how would I think this wouldn't make sense to me would be if somehow Klubnik doesn't play, which wouldn't make sense. Or if to me, that's the only thing. Like, these defenses haven't been good all year. Tennessee's been one of the worst defenses in the SEC. From a yards per play perspective, they've been terrible all year. And Clemson's defense has been so blah all year. Like, any type of relevant offense has scored on Clemson this year. So love the over spot. Despite it going down, it makes me like it even more. Any last notes there with regards to bowl games today?
No, I like the way you're. I don't understand the drop in the total. Considering the venue, considering the two teams, I think that's a knee jerk. And I like, to your point, they always talk about late steam, right? You're allowed to take advantage of it if you have an opinion on the game or if you have a side on the game. We all know the cool kids and CLV. I did a part of a show on that where, to me, what you always want is BLV. Okay. To say you got the best of the closing number is one thing, but did you get the best number available in the game throughout? And when you're talking about bowl games, lines are hanging for a month. Most of your sharp guys are at some point going to steam that. If line movement comes in late like that, it's generally, and it works in your favor. Don't be worried about Billy Walters is smashing it and he's a rich guy, so I better not play it. If it goes in my favor, I don't mind that a bit, especially in bowl games. So.
100%. And like I said, it's all relevant, right? But with that said, yeah, I mean, call it rare for me to target a late game hammer in a primetime game where it's the only game on television over. But to me, the number is just this is almost feeling like I should I don't want to say double down, but throw a little more pennies on that over if it keeps steaming down, because two defenses like this, two offenses that play soft tempo, it'd be tough to imagine this game is like a 24-14 type game. It'd just be tough to imagine. I mean, granted, turnovers and such can be there. We've seen it in bowl games. I mean, shit, Ray, look at yesterday. What did Syracuse? More than double the yardage output of Minnesota. And not only did they almost lose outright, they almost didn't
cover.
They lost outright. They almost lost teasers because, like,
right.
Forget about not even covering. They almost lost the if you tease them up, you still might have lost. So yeah, it was a wild game. Minnesota didn't do anything on offense, but had so much field position all game long because of special teams and defense and whatnot. So, but either way, should be a ton of offense in that game tonight. Will result in the scoring. We'll find out, but should be a ton of offense. Before we pop off, any college basketball you want to talk today, Ray? If you haven't already.
I gave out an early play on UNC Pitt under 70.5 first half. That was a noon start. I have no idea how that's going. Probably flying over, but Yeah, it's going to be that's probably going to go over. So that's an L for anybody who jumped on that. Later games, the ones I looked at, I played USC minus the 1.5 at Washington. Couple of advantages there that I liked in the USC side, but to me, they're just a far superior basketball team. Ken Palm agrees. I think that's a soft number. It started to climb. I saw 2 this morning. That wouldn't scare me off. Another one I looked at, UCLA minus the 8.5 at Wazoo. UCLA is top 67 in 4 of my key 5 stat metrics. So that, I mean, and one of those being defensive efficiency, another one being assist to turnover. So you look for ball security from UCLA. The 8.5 doesn't look like too much to me. And the one I really like the most today, and I'm a huge Larranaga fan. I don't know how you feel about Larranaga at Miami, but and I know Mike Bray. I actually used to give golf lessons to Mike Bray and his wife and kids when he was the head coach at the University of Delaware prior to coming to Notre Dame. He kind of was the first one to really bring Delaware basketball somewhat back from the dregs. Really good guy, but I think Larranaga is the better coach there. And this is another team, top 56 in 4 of my 5. And in the 5th one, they're 116th in the country. So, and the trigger here for me, offensive rebounding percentage, Miami 56th in the country, Notre Dame 356th.
Oh, wow.
So when you're talking about a tight point spread of 2, in a conference game like this, where you're going to get a rebounding edge, both teams are relatively equal free throw line. Miami's got the better 2-point offense and ball security. I think that's a little bit of a soft number. I like Miami minus the 2 there. So,
love it. And just as you were talking, I just kind of fired on some of them as well. So, love it. Let's cash some money. Anything you're doing crazy for New Year's?
That's usually like, for people that like to have the occasional beer, that's usually like the off night for us. Not to say I didn't enjoy many of them, and I can think of some good ones when I lived out in Vegas. Some of the New Year's out there were just epic. I mean, they were worth going out for. And if I lived like an area like you did, I'd probably, going to the city or doing something like that would be a draw. But, here in the sticks, it's like, do I really want to go out icy roads? What am I going to go out to in Blacksburg? What's going to turn my head in Blacksburg on New Year's Eve, right? So pretty chill for us. We got 2 new dogs. We rescued a dog from the shelter. It's a hound, and it's so skittish. It must have been pounded by its previous owner, beaten. And then I got the kids a golden doodle Australian Shepherd mix for Christmas. So I've got dogs running all around the freaking house right now.
I love the mini golden doodles.
Yeah.
They're not even. I mean, honestly, they're not even mini. They're still like 35 pounds. But,
right.
Yeah, love them. No, that's all good. So obviously, rescuing is always great too. It's so.
Yeah, the dog needed it. I felt so bad for it when I saw it. It just looked like a beat down dog, and she's already coming along awesome. So I'm psyched for that. I wanted to touch on one last thing, JJ, at Tennessee Clemson. And we might have seen it a little bit yesterday. One of the angles I use early in college football season, games in Florida, especially when you have an heat index over 90 at the start of the second half, play the second half over. Offense knows where they're going. Defense doesn't. Defenses get gassed in that heat. I think you might see, and again, I'm no meteorologist, but I'm quite sure it's significantly colder or warmer in Miami than it is anywhere else in the country right now, probably. And that's a game where you could see it sort of trundle along in the first half decently. And then second half, you start to see defenses get gassed because if you're even, Tennessee and Clemson, they're not exactly cold weather cities, but if you're in Tennessee right now, they just went through a streak of 0-degree temperatures. I mean, it's gonna take a toll when you play in that extra heat and humidity. You see it with the Dolphins every year against New England, right? That was like a steady moneymaker for a while when the good New England teams would go down there and lose when the temperatures were still warm. Because that was that game last night that I had teased under 75 and under 69 in Florida State in the Florida State game because
that was just stupid.
And I'm sweating it. I'm telling my wife, I'm going to lose 2 games. Arkansas, I'm going to lose because of overtime. I said, and now I'm going to lose this total that was way under, but we saw it in the second half. It just went hyperactive.
Yeah, frustrating. Super frustrating too, because if I just waited, I think it ended the
1.5.
It landed 67 though, right?
Last night, yeah. I didn't see what the final total was. I mean, I managed to win both teasers, but
I saw 67.5 late as the number late, like right before tip. And just frustrating because I did bet it at I think 65.5. And if you just wait, it was a winner. despite what was it, 34 points in the fourth quarter? Something just stupid. Like
it became a track meet. You're snapping it with 30 seconds on a play clock, and you're like, and when you got the under, that's a death now.
Yeah, it was almost like just watching a car crash about to happen, because every drive was 2 minutes and touchdown every drive for both teams. But look, those be the breaks. It'd be hard pressed to imagine there'd be a crazier bowl spread related ending than Kansas, because Kansas had no business being in that game. Arkansas.
How did they not reverse that fumble? The fumble was a fumble. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Just a crazy stream of things to happen. And Jalen Daniels looks like shit against a real, defense trying to stop a team. And then when they go up 3.5 scores and they go into this like prevent defense, Jalen Daniels just goes underneath for everything. And very frustrating to watch him battle them back. I had Arkansas money line as well.
Nice.
So at least I got that, but I still lost money on that game overall. But yeah, it was annoying, but I'm sure other people can relate. I think if you bet Kansas plus 2.5 in that game, I think that's your one time. We all get a one time, right?
Happy New Year for that one. And that closed at 1.5 also, by the way. There are people that if you bought
it was another game that late steam. So I think, it's hard to kind of predict where the steam is going to go or not, but it's very evident that late these games are getting pushed in one direction or the other, and a pretty significant amount. I mean, a lot of these games are moving 2-3 points before tip within that last hour and a half or so. So just be alert to that. Much more fun games tomorrow. I'm going to be on either with the DFS end talking the games, or I'll pop on the bets end to talk some of the games for tomorrow. It's obviously the biggest games of the year. But other than that, Ray, any final notes from you?
No, Happy New Year to everybody. Like I always say this time of year, check on your neighbors, check on your people in your community, be community-based. People need help. People are struggling this time of year. So check in on your friends, family. That's what time of year it is in your community. Make sure everybody's good. Stay safe, stay safe on the roads. Still some cold conditions, let's everybody have a happy and safe New Year, right?
Yeah, love it. Love it. And yes, just to set them in, just to add on to that, look, gamble responsibly. Obviously, this time of year is meant to have fun, enjoy time with friends, family, whatever you're into. Don't blow all your gambling losses doing stupid shit. Bet where you want, bet within means, gamble responsibly, as we always say. And look, stay safe throughout this holiday weekend. I'm sure a lot of you guys have off work, whether it's Sunday or Monday or both. So yeah, enjoy the time off, enjoy the time, family and friends. And as always, run pure. See you guys next few days.